Hello,
My name's Sam.
my name is Kevin.
I'm Daval.
Daval today is our special guest. This is a Life Happens podcast. And today we'll be talking about a little bit about Daval's story, and he'll be sharing a little bit about that. And I just want to thank you first for being our first guest, and
This is our guinea pig.
Pleasure's mine.
guinea pig. But yeah, I guess we can just go straight into it, right?
Yeah. So, little background-ish about how this all came together. The three of us sitting down here is that, so I'm a sophomore, he's a junior, this guy's a senior, now graduated, technically graduated early, but my freshman year, I basically ran into this guy in the fall because freshman fall was I was a little wild, I was getting things out of my system, and then this one night where I got pretty sloshed. Be responsible, people. I got pretty sloshed, and then I think my friends took me back to their dorm, and I woke up to this guy taking care of me, and I was like, what? I was like,
Something like IV fluids
on the dorm room of AMR 3.
extra vitamin B for this guy.
I just remember I was like semi-coherent. This guy was just like talking to me the whole time to keep me awake and whatnot.
I remember you trying to punch me, Sam.
Oh wait, what? Are you
I remember you
serious?
trying to punch me.
Wait, I don't remember this part.
You were not happy.
Wait, you can't say this part of the podcast? No.
Sam's a belligerent drunk.
Oh shoot, I don't remember this part.
Yeah.
Wait, actually?
And then there was karaoke, Sam.
Oh.
Fun and
Oh,
belligerent.
shoot.
Fun and belligerent.
Okay, we did not review this part before the podcast, but I'm a lot tamer now. That was just freshman year things, but
Changed man, sophomore year. Yeah.
But yeah, and then just from that afterwards, I reached out to him and I was like, bro, I don't want you to just know me as that freshman drunk. So let's sit down, just hang out a little bit. Let's get to know each other. Yes, we had some coffee and I just heard your story and I was like, I just remember thinking damn, this guy, damn, that's amazing. And and then later when we were thinking about we want to use this, Kevin and I were talking about we want to use this podcast as a platform to to tell people's stories and to make their voices heard, right? Because to you, this may just be your life, but I think to some other people, this is seriously, this is a lot. This can be a lot of things, right? It can be inspiration, it can be whatever it can be, right? But
So I guess I'll just start all the way from the beginning. That's only fair.
and we're gonna intercut with small questions and things like that.
Oh, go for it, please. Interrupt anytime you want. So I was born in America, but due to financial conditions, my parents ended up sending me back to India, and my grandparents raised me.
Where in India did you grow up?
It's the most western state. It's called Gujarat.
Okay. So it's near Bangladesh. Is it?
It's near Pakistan.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's
Wow. Really?
it's right there. It's where the current prime minister's from. If you know anything about that, Modi. Yeah. I ended up being raised in India. Wasn't anything spectacular, but when I was 10, my parents ended up shifting me back to America. Actually, only 40 minutes from here. I grew up in Bel Air. Yep, not California. That's what Fresh Prince of Bel Air, dude.
Fresh Prince of Bel Air. That's
it's
a nice place. It's a very nice
everyone
place.
always asks, you're from Bel Air, California? I'm like, no, dude. I'm 40 minutes from here. But yeah, I ended up moving back to here. And it was rough going. My parents, they worked really hard to support me and my sister. But during my junior year, it was the summer of my junior year. Of high school. We were it was my cousin's wedding, and my parents were really excited because this was the big wedding in the family. And I did not want to go back to India. I was so tired. I just wanted a nice summer break. And every time we go back to India, it's you got to visit family, friends, and you spend half the time just doing that. And so I convinced my parents to let me take physics at a community college for part of the summer while they were in India, and then I would meet up with them at the end. But during that time, I started feeling these really weird symptoms. I would wake up randomly in the middle of the night, covered in sweat. And the worst one was actually my feet were really itchy, which sounds kind of weird. Yeah.
It's different.
But they were really itchy, and to the extent where I literally ripped off all the skin, just scratching myself. Yeah. but I mean, my parents were in India. Like I was done high school. Like I didn't know any better. I was just like, oh, probably got some like rash or something.
Just chilling. Like,
Yeah. It wasn't too bad. But then summer was ending. Physics ended, and then I went to the wedding in India, and obviously, like environment plays a role in one's health, and the environment like kicked hyperdrive like my cancer, and ended up like I was really sick. I couldn't eat. Like I was having
while you were in India.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't breathe. I was having trouble eating.
Oh my gosh.
Couldn't do anything. Couldn't sleep. So my dad took me to a doctor in India. They did an MRI, X-ray. They always think it's TB because that's very like common in terms of that. Yeah. So and the doctor there, like I didn't know this. Like in India, you don't really have like when you're a kid, like the doctor doesn't talk to you; they talk to your parents.
Gotcha.
So
you didn't know what was going on.
I didn't know what was going on. I was just,
Wow.
I was like, I still remember I was like chilling in the car while my dad and uncle, they were with the doctor, and afterwards they came out, and like my dad seemed a little shaken up, but I was like, what's up? Like, did he say anything? They're like, oh no, they're just like, it's because you're in India, you haven't been here in a while, so you're just not feeling well. And I was like, okay, that sounds fine to me. So wedding passes, everything's done. We're back in America. It's like first or second week of junior year, and my dad, like, I come home from school, and I still remember I was stressed out about my AP English essay, because, dude, English was the one thing where I always struggled, and I was like, this is gonna be like my Mount Everest, like, I'm gonna kill this class, because I had to learn Spanish in high school alongside, like, I was pretty decent at English by then, but it was just, with Spanish and English, I was getting, everything was getting jumbled up, and I was just struggling, but I was like, I'm gonna do this. And I was so stressed about that essay, and I was like, I'm gonna finish this today. And my dad, I come home, it's like 4, and my dad's like, come on, eat, and then we're gonna go to the hospital. I'm like, oh, 4, dude, I'm fine now. Like, all the symptoms vanished, literally. Like, I was breathing, I loved eating, like, I was sleeping fine. Like, everything just went away, which was really weird, because originally I was...
Right when you got back?
Right when I got... Like, it was like a week after I got back.
Oh,
okay. Like, week, 2 weeks.
You're feeling great.
I was feeling great. Like, none of the symptoms I was experiencing in the summer while I was in America. But he's like, no, like, we have to go to the hospital. And I argued with him, but eventually I gave in. And instead of going to the hospital close by, like, that Johns Hopkins hospital is about, like, 45 minutes to an hour.
You drove all the way to Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and I was really confused because we had obviously you'd go to like a primary care provider or just someone close by.
Right.
And yeah, Dad brought me to the hospital, and later in the evening they ended up telling me that I had cancer. Still remember it's kind of like your world shatters for a moment, like you're kind of unsure what's going on, like, and I remember my mom was kind of like, she was trying to stay strong, but she was kind of breaking apart. And I was just like, I was kind of away from the situation. Like, I wasn't, like, you know, you're kind of in denial. Yeah.
Denial, definitely.
Yeah, so I kind of felt really detached. But then, like, my mom started crying, and I was like, no, like, it's fine. And I was just trying to comfort her.
Wow.
And, yeah, next few months were kind of a blur. I ended up dropping out of high school altogether to focus on my health, which was very depressing because I was going to be my sister graduated high school before me, but I wanted to be like valedictorian. I wanted to be like the top dog just to make my parents proud because they don't have fancy titles here. Like, they work blue collar jobs, and it's really difficult for them. So it was very depressing. But yeah, ended up dropping out. But I had great care. My parents were willing to do everything. My mom started working nights, and my dad would be there. Like, it was like the early, like 1 to like 6 period. My mom like would go to work, and then she would come back, and then my dad would go, and
So someone was always with
A
you.
caretaker.
So, yeah, and that was really weird because even when we were like 10, 11, like both my parents worked full time, and we wouldn't see them until late in the evening, and me and my sister were just by ourselves. But this was the first time where they like completely like redid like everything just so they could take care of me, and then my mom would be there, and then my dad would come back around like if I needed to get treatment, my dad would come back, and then he would drive all the way out to Baltimore and take me for treatment. And it was really difficult for him because he's very like, even if he steps foot in a hospital, he gets lightheaded, and he doesn't do well with it. But he overcame that just for me.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was honestly I can't say enough about my parents. But yeah, and also like I had something called a PIC line, which is how they deliver chemo, and it's the line that was attached here for me. You can still see the mark right there because it doesn't go away. But yeah, but they learned how to take, like, they needed to flush it every night, every morning and night, and then also put certain medications in it at home, and they learned how to do that, which was
wow.
honestly props to them.
Right.
As people like who got lightheaded, even at like when they stepped foot in a hospital, they learned to do all this. But yeah, it was rough. But eventually, like, it was either I was gonna beat cancer or cancer was gonna beat me, and after a while, like, I just decided I couldn't stay home anymore. Like, I was building a prison for myself. So decided, so like, I was towards the end of my chemo, and I was like, I'm gonna go back to high school, Dad. And they were kind of really worried because I was still getting treatment.
Right.
And also like infection, like your immune system shot during all this time. But it was just something that I wanted to do. So I think it was, I want to say November or December. But I ended up going to my high school counselor, and I was like, hey, like, I want to come back. And she was like, you sure you can come back? Like, almost half the school year's over, like, and you're still getting treatment, like.
This is November, your junior year.
Yeah.
Got it.
But I was like, yeah, I want to go back. And she's like, okay, let's see if we can get you back into a few of your main classes that would allow you to graduate on time, like math, English. But I still remember I was in AP Cal, and that was just a really difficult subject in general, like, you know, something that everyone struggles with. So that she's like, yeah, you might not want to take that, like, we can just make an exception because you don't need that many math classes to graduate. But I even ended up fighting to take AP Cal just to maintain my pride.
Damn.
It's a matter of pride, dude. Come on,
Still the ball, right?
Yeah, I can do this. But yeah, so I ended up actually taking 7 out of my 8 classes, even though she said take a reduced load, and everyone was obviously everyone was really supportive during this time period. Like, teachers were willing to make exceptions, but like, you know, like, it was something I decided that I wanted to do this based on my own like merits. Like, I didn't want there to be an exception just because I had like an excuse. Like, if every other student was held to this standard, I wanted to meet and surpass it.
Right.
So I tried my best to do it, and obviously sometimes you fail, but sometimes you don't. And during this time, like, my dad, like, school day would end at like 2, but my dad would end up coming a little early, pick me up, drive me to Hopkins, so I could get the rest of my treatment.
Wow.
And they would literally, like, I'd be one of their last patients because these are long sessions, you know. Take a couple hours. But yeah, end up graduating and somehow pulled off the grades to come here. And throughout all this time period, like, my parents were scared of medicine, and I was kind of along in the same boat. actually when I first shadowed, like I was shadowing neurosurgery at University of Maryland, and the surgeon hadn't even like touched the scalpel to someone's skin, and I blacked out.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't do well with medicine either.
When was this shadowing? Was this during college or?
This was actually during college. I think it was winter of my freshman year.
Okay.
But yeah, but as the end of high school was approaching, like I kind of looked back at all that had happened, and I was kind of dead set of becoming an engineer. Like that's like in India, there's a mentality like if you're a guy, like I don't know if you guys have seen Three Idiots. It's a very
I have seen Three Idiots.
Yeah,
It is good.
definitely watched it. It's a great movie, but there's this Indian mentality where if you're a guy in India, you're gonna be an engineer, and if
That's
you're
long
a
as
girl,
that,
you're gonna be a doctor. Yeah.
right.
Right, you know?
It's like somewhat similar in like Asian culture. too.
Yeah.
One
I mean,
of those two, and just add a lawyer part.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, I'm gonna be an engineer. Like this was my dad's dream. This is gonna be my dream. But it was just, I couldn't. Like I was like, after all that has happened, like there has to be a purpose. Like I can't just look back at all that and just make it nothing. And I ended up getting an offer here. It was St. Patrick's Day, and it was kind of bittersweet at the moment because I looked back, and even like to this day, I kind of like whenever I think of Hopkins, I kind of put myself into the patient mentality. But this was going to be my new Mount Everest. Like this was something that I had to do. And I told my dad, like, hey, like, I know originally I said I was going to be an engineer. I think I want to go to med school. And obviously, like, my parents can't afford to, like, send me to med school. But that wasn't their main concern. They're like, do you think you'll be able to do it? And I did not have an answer for them because it's a really valid question.
Right.
Because I've shadowed oncology a couple of times, and it's really hard to be objective. It's it's good to empathize, but when you empathize to the point of that you can't like be objective about the situation, that's not good in a physician. Like typically I feel like in a physician, like everyone says, oh yeah, like med students are being desensitized. We need to teach them empathy, and obviously I haven't been to med school yet, but even to like right now I struggle with the fact of getting rid of that patient mentality and becoming like a medical provider. But yeah,
Oh my gosh.
that's basically like my experiences were the driving force behind what happened. And I had some great doctors. That was another factor because my parents don't exactly speak the best English, and obviously they don't understand any of this medical jargon. But my doctors were really helpful. Most of them, they were really understanding that they did not speak English, and I've seen this with certain like patients, like there's a lot of Spanish-speaking populations that come to Hopkins in Maryland, and there's a lot of physicians that end up like losing their patients just because it's hard to get all the information out and tell them. And I had physicians who didn't do that, and seeing this, like, it's nice. Like when you're a patient, like you're always honestly like you kind of get into the mentality like, oh, this is happening to me, but it happens to your family. Like it doesn't just happen to you. Like my parents had to.
Greatly affected, like you said, to switch jobs just to they're like full-time like employees, but also like full-time like caretakers for you.
And they were trying to support my sister in college.
Triple whammy.
Yeah, and it was rough from all across, and these little things like they end up mattering a lot. Like I know, like especially with pediatrics patients, I've seen this. Like the kids themselves are not going to be as worried as the parents are. And the parents, like, they're the difficult, like, I feel like they're the difficult ones to, like, convince in terms of, like, oh, that's fine. Like, they're going to be worried about the smallest things, and the little things end up adding up. And I think after all this, like, I kind of used it as, like, a stepping stone in terms of what kind of physician I want to be. Is what I saw in some of the best doctors that I had.
To clarify, so you're saying you would like to be a pediatrician when you...
Yeah, I want to be a pediatric oncologist.
Dang.
Wow.
Ped-onc.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's one of the most difficult things, because I shadowed during my freshman winter, because I definitely wanted to get an idea of what the job entailed.
Right.
And it's really difficult,
Really?
because you see these perfectly happy, like, children come in, and they're like, when they first come in, they're like bouncing off the walls. They have so much less energy.
Right.
And then they go through chemo, and by the end, they're just like, it's hard. Like, they can't even lift their heads.
Oh,
They're so fatigued, yeah.
Yeah, and like, just like during chemo, like, they're constantly vomiting, like, and obviously, like, you have to worry about their nutrition. You have to worry that, like, nothing else is happening to them. But, like, just seeing them go from, like, this restless ball of energy to, like, like, someone that can barely lift their head is kind of really difficult. But it's definitely something that I think I would love to do. Just because I've been there, and, like, it's one thing to hear, like, oh, like, everything's gonna be okay, but it's another when hearing it from someone that's personally been there. And obviously you can't, like, tell them, like, oh, like, I've been there, but it's definitely, like,
easier to empathize.
It's definitely easier to empathize with.
Something to relate to understand, because you've been in that position.
Yeah, and I think the bigger part is the parents. Like, I remember what my parents felt, and my parents are definitely, like, the overprotective, melodramatic, like, people when it comes to, like, taking care of me. Like, even to this day, like, they come to drop off food, like, 2 to 3 times a week, just so.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, they're
food.
It is. They're like, we don't want you eating outside, because they're still so worried about my health. My dad started.
No hot deli.
Yeah, no. But they're insane, and I can definitely imagine, like, what everyone else's parents might be feeling.
So just as much as you want to take care of that patient who's going to be a child, you also really want to take care of the parents too.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, okay, like, we go to the doctors, right?
Right.
We're going to be able to ask our own questions. We're going to be able to understand what they're trying to tell us, right? Now, imagine, go back to when you're 5-6 years old. Are you really, like...
No, everything would literally go
exactly.
up. Like, you'll just go through.
I feel like I would have trouble, like, paying attention to the doctor. Like, I'd be more worried about, like, playing video games or like playing with toys, you know? So I feel like a big aspect of it is just dealing with parents. And I think with my parents, like, especially, it was because my grandfather was actually diagnosed with cancer last year, spring semester. That one was insane too, because he was in Canada at the time. And I went to visit him in November, and he had this huge bulge on the side of his head. And I was like, hey, like, I was talking to my cousin, because my grandfather, like, obviously I don't want to worry him, because he was, like, he's old and he's fragile. And so he had this huge bulge, and I was like, hey, what's happening with that? Have you taken him to the doctors? And he was like, we have, but they haven't given an appointment for another, like, 2 or 3 months to check him out. And I was like, okay, like, take him to emergency, do something, because you definitely need to get this checked out. Like, it kind of looks serious. And I kind of, like, when he was telling me like, oh, this is happening to me, I kind of felt like, oh, like I kind of remember that's how I felt, but obviously like I could just be like over analyzing and just putting him in the same situation I was when it wasn't. But I went back in December and nothing had happened, and I called my dad and I'm like, hey dad, like this is what's up. I honestly think we should bring him to Hopkins, because it was the care I received, like it was within a day that they diagnosed me and had everything going, and I was like, it's not happening here, dad. It's been over a month and I'm really worried about this, and I'm gonna bring him tomorrow. And we left at 7 a.m. the next day, and I brought him, I think it was 6 or 7, I brought him to Hopkins, and at 1 p.m. they diagnosed him. And it was honestly like medicine, like the one thing I've learned, it's really difficult. Like it's really difficult to get it right, but there's just some doctors here that have gotten it really right, and it was obviously really difficult news, but I was happy that we had gotten something and we could go
take action
from there, because during that time period something could happen. But sadly it wasn't something that was curable, and he ended up passing away. But even during that time period, my parents were like, my dad would literally like sleep next to him on the ground, just so like he could, if my grandfather needed anything during the night. And like Indians, like obviously like you're gonna go back to like her, like the doctors here had said like there's very little you can do, but like Ayurvedic medicine is really big in India, and they were just trying all these things, and my dad would wake up at like 3 a.m. to feed him one thing, and then at like 7 they would feed him another, and he was on top of it. And I think like just seeing that like from my parents, like I realized like there's definitely parents out there and they're gonna be worried, but you just have to like it's normal, and you have to learn to accept it.
Your parents have really been through a lot, man. Holy moly.
My parents are actually it's really interesting. My parents originally came to Canada, and it was really difficult for them to find work, and they ended up living apart. I think my mom was in America, my dad worked in a Canadian factory, and they wouldn't see each other for months at a time.
Wow.
And then when they got back to America, my dad would work at night and my mom would work in the morning, and so like
barely saw each other.
So they wouldn't see each other, and when they were home, like the other was sleeping. So they would write notes for each other, just like say like what's up, like.
Wow.
But yeah, and like it was really difficult. Like my parents called every weekend, but it's really difficult like not having your parents there when you're growing up. You know, like I mean I had my grandparents, but like when someone asks like, hey, like what's up with your parents, like it's really difficult to say like, oh, they're in America, like I don't see them.
Right.
And even like I remember the first time I met them, I kind of felt like they were strangers almost. Because you get to an age where you don't like, it's very like hard for you to form that bond, you know.
Without a doubt,
and yeah, like I was away for 10 years, and I can't say that I've ever felt like I'm not my parents' son, you know, like. People struggle to like. I feel like there's definitely stories where I've heard where people struggle to realize like what their parents do for them, and I can say my parents have done everything in their power to get me to where I am today, and without them I would not be here. And they've been supporting me all throughout college, and they're ready to do whatever they can for med school. I remember my dad joking that if I went to school in another state, he would move my mom with me just so she could feed me. And he said it as a joke.
You're like, are you joking?
It was, dude. I was like, are you joking? But I don't think he was. That was the scary part.
Oh my goodness.
Well, your parents don't know sarcasm. They actually do. They mean it for real.
Exactly, dude. No, but yeah.
So
that's amazing.
For everyone listening, where are you in this process now?
Well, I'm actually taking my MCATs next month. Fingers crossed.
We'll be praying. We'll be, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll be applying to med school this summer, and sad to say I won't be applying to Hopkins. Yeah, because throughout my time here, I still haven't been able to break that mold of me thinking of myself as a patient. And as much as I love it here, like I don't think I'd make an effective physician thinking of myself as a patient the whole time. So hopefully I'll be going someplace just as good as Hopkins, but not here.
Even the other Bel Air, so you can go to.
Oh, the other Bel Air, maybe.
You can live there one day with your family. It'll be really nice. There you go.
I've heard great things about it.
I personally have not lived there because that's like massive. That's like the cream of the crop. Like the top 1% of the like rich live there. So
you'll be there one day, dude.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Shucks.
I'm just kind of like speechless right now because I'm like,
seriously,
I don't even know what to say, man.
No, I mean it's been a journey. It's been a journey. There's been really difficult times. There have been times where I wanted to give up. Especially last year when my grandfather was diagnosed. It was just like cancer was the one thing that kept screwing everything up in my family.
Seriously, like actually.
Yeah. And it was the one thing where like it wasn't something my family did to like deserve it. It was something that they did not have a choice because it was someone they loved, and I don't think anyone would ever say like it's a burden on them, but I always felt like I was a burden to them just because of it. And even today, like they're very like they come to like they never did that for my sister. Like I mean they did like they went once a week, but they never were like we're gonna come 2 or 3 times a week to come give you food. Like
and they're still working. They're
everything.
Busy.
My dad like. Right now he calls me at 5 a.m. just to wake me up so I can study for my MCATs.
Wow,
what a guy!
Like he sets an alarm himself and then he wakes up an hour.
He wakes up just for.
Yeah, just because he's more dedicated than I am, and like he knows there's a chance that I won't wake up by myself just because it's so exhausting, you know. I mean, you've been there.
Terror. It's dreadful.
Yeah.
It's dreadful waking up. You don't want to wake up.
Yeah, dude.
You really want to stay in your dreams.
Yeah, and then you're also like, you have your whole school day ahead of you. So like, imagine waking up at 5 and then have to get through the rest of your school day, and then you have to do the homework of that school day.
Bruh.
And then if you have MCAT stuff extra with it, it's just like research extra with that. And then just like, it's piling.
Yeah.
Med school is something else.
Yeah,
like,
but
seriously.
even to this day, like I feel the effects of that. And people are like, my family is very like, they don't like to like, they never told my grandfather I even had cancer. Like, this is one subject that me and my family like kind of like we don't talk about it. Like
it's there's taboo.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because it was like honestly I'm proud of my parents for like I don't think they could have done anything more, and I'm so appreciative.
Right.
And I think like Indian and Asian families in general, there's that like fine line of respect where like you just don't mention it. Like it's kind of just like, oh, like you talk like, okay, it happened, and you move on.
Yeah.
You don't go back to like, I get like, if you want to view it as like a failure, like you never talk about your failures, right?
Right.
And I don't think this was a failure. Like this was a huge success. Like they did so much for me. And like I graduated top of my class in high school. I ended up here. And like I'm one of the first people in my family to like go to college, like and without them this is not possible. But I feel like this is always one thing that they never talk about.
They just it's like that huge
it's a difference in culture.
Yeah,
it's massive difference.
Yeah. And I mean growing up, like I grew up partially in India and partially here, and I think I definitely have that like kind of mentality where like, okay, like let's talk, but like it's something that's fine, like it's normal.
Yeah.
Like I think I forget how we ended up talking about this, Sam, for the first time, but it was kind of like one of the first times where it was easy to tell someone like, and I think I mean you're just an easy person to talk to, but like with my parents there's not that, and it's definitely nice, like when you tell your story, you like normalize it, right? Like it's not something where you kind of feel like it's difficult to talk about. And I think I was cancer free on December 31st, 2015. I ringed in the new year.
Actually, though.
Cancer free. Yeah.
Awesome.
Get that test in. Let me see those results.
And it's 2020, so it's 5 years.
That's amazing.
Now it's kind
Absolutely
of
amazing.
it's kind of normal to like talk about it, like but it was insane. It was insane, dude.
Just as a question, like, was the hardest part really that identity, like, shattering for you?
It definitely was. I was struggling with the fact, like why me? Like it wasn't even like I was always asking the question, why me? And actually, like, I think it only lasted for about like a day. It was kind of weird to say, but after the day, like the first day I got diagnosed, like I sneaked out of my room because obviously, like, I didn't want to, like, my parents were sleeping, and I kind of just wanted a free space to cry. Like, it was very difficult. Like, it was very unreal, and like I didn't want that person to be in front of my parents, someone who was so unsure. And I remember, like, even as I was walking out of my room, I had tears in my eyes, and I ended up going to this, like, it was a little baby, and this was the oncology inpatient side, so most likely she had cancer. I don't know if it was she or he, but and the baby was just crying, and I think their parents might have stepped out for a little bit. I don't know what was up, but it was just watching her cry. Like, that baby literally hadn't done anything in this world yet. Like, had no experiences, had no recollection of anything, and there she was. And I kind of felt like it was unfair of me to, like, keep asking the question, why me? And I still ask. I still kind of ask, like, why me? But I think now I kind of have an answer. Like, there's people, like, there's babies out there that have cancer, and they've done nothing. Like, it wasn't something I did. It was just something that happened.
Yeah.
And I think now whenever I think, why me? I always think it was so I could do something about it. Like, it was just so, like, I don't, like, honestly, like, I could totally imagine myself, like, having graduated, if none of this had happened, having graduated high school, becoming an engineer, becoming, like, a paper pusher, doing nothing, like, important in my life. And, like, I don't know if I can, like, truly, like, obviously I can't cure cancer. Like, there's just something it's a huge monster to be.
Yes.
But it's just something, like, even making one person's life
It's playing a part
a little easier.
Yeah.
Means the whole world.
Means the whole world, because none of my doctors are actually, like, the few doctors that I interacted with and I loved, none of them are at Hopkins anymore, sad to say.
Wow.
Because my main doctor, she was a fellow, actually, and she worked under, like, the attending to obviously care for me, but I always thought of her as my main doctor. I always, even, like, she just left last year, and I would have follow-up appointments, and I would always email her, and she would be the one that always checked me out. And sad to say, she ended up leaving because she couldn't, like, at big hospitals like Hopkins, research is valued so much.
Yeah, it is.
And unless you can kind of secure your own funding, like, you're not going to be hired as an attending. And it was one of the saddest things I've had. And something similar happened to my radiation oncologist. She's at Minnesota now. But research is definitely important, but it's sad to see that these great clinicians I had who made my day so much better had to leave just because of research. And I definitely think that's, like, this is just kind of a tangent, but it's kind of a shortcoming in our medical system where we're pushing out, like, she was a fellow at Hopkins. Before Hopkins, she was at Sloan Kettering, which is one of the best cancer hospitals.
Yeah.
And based on my experiences, I honestly thought like she's one of the best doctors you could ask for. But she wasn't there. Yeah, that was just a random tangent, but I think there's a real emphasis on research at these top tier medical institutes, which is important. But it also ends up like you make these great clinicians leave. Yeah.
It's a little sad. I can slight tangent, but also kind of similar too.
Yeah.
I very much highly like value education.
Yeah.
And, you know, like these are people that can really influence the future leaders of America.
Yeah.
It's super cliche, but it's so impactfully true. And they don't compensate like education well,
Yeah.
like at all.
No.
Like, very little, especially within the medical field.
Yeah. I think they have like the teachers. I think they call them volunteer faculty, and all the teachers who are actually like teaching these medical students, they volunteered their time. And I feel like teaching is such a great thing to do. Like,
right.
You're literally like without teachers. Like, imagine a high school teacher. Like, if you didn't have great high school teachers, you're not gonna have the foundation needed to like go into college and succeed.
Right.
But like, if you look at it, high school teachers are not paid that greatly. Like, they should honestly be compensated a lot more. And for medical students, you're literally training someone to save someone's life, and you have to do it on
provide better treatment.
Yeah.
And how are they? They're only volunteering.
Yeah, like a lot of them are
getting compensated.
A lot of them are volunteer faculty. So I mean, props to them because they're volunteering their time because it's meaningful to them.
They value it, yeah.
But I definitely think like it's really unfair that they have to just volunteer, like, and especially some of the great ones, because like I feel like some of the best teachers I've had, like they're not the researchers. They're the people that have wanted to like teach. Yeah, they're
professors.
Yeah,
like actual professors.
But yeah, that's something that I definitely think our educational system itself is lacking. Yeah, that was just a random tangent. Sorry.
No. Who knows? Maybe we can like make a change in that. Someday.
Yeah, hopefully. No, I definitely want to do academic medicine. Like, I want to be a pediatric oncologist, and I definitely want to work with medical students because, obviously, like my doctors influenced me. Like, I wasn't influenced by like my professors or anyone because I'm not in that school yet. But it was them, and one of the saddest things, pediatric oncologists are actually one of the least compensated physicians out there, and
least compensated of all specialties of everything.
Or one like they're towards the bottom.
Wow.
Like
I did not know that.
Yeah, if you I think if you look at like normal oncology, it's around like 400,000. But if you look at pediatric oncologists, you're I think just a little north of 200.
No way.
It's almost half.
Wait, no. It's because you have to get a double specialty. You have to do like.
Well, I mean,
two residency or an extra fellowship to do that. Right?
I mean, yeah. Well, so if you want to be a normal oncologist, you do internal medicine residency, which is 3 years, and then do a fellowship.
For oncology, yes.
For hematology and oncology, but then for pediatric oncologists, you do a pediatrics residency, and then so the training time is identical.
But it's almost
the compensation is like still not.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think it's because, I mean, I guess children don't get as sick often enough. I'm not actually sure about this, but if you look at pediatrics in general, they're less compensated than their adult counterparts. And I think it's really weird because if you think about it, like children are like the future, right? Like, obviously, like as a physician, like when you look at the outer population, like it's more difficult to care for them, but also like they're also towards like a lot of their systems are failing, and it's really difficult, right? And yeah, you're gonna have to do more procedures, and I think procedures are what bring in like all the money. But with pediatrics, like you don't have as many problems, so you don't have to do as many procedures, so they don't
They're a lot more healthy.
Yeah,
they have higher chances of success.
So, yeah,
of like being in remission.
Yeah, so I think just because like
it's
older
just like the
people,
business aspect, right?
Like I think it's the business aspect. Older people are like towards their end, so they have a lot more problems and
more rounds of chemo.
Yeah,
there's more stuff to be done, more revenue,
more order,
to be generated.
more revenue.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think that's really sad.
That's so sad.
Because I think Maryland is one of the states where they're trying to change it and make it value-based care. And I don't think that's going to solve our problems, but they're basically like, they look at the number of patients you had last year and like how much money they paid you, and they pay the hospital the same amount of money, And whatever money you can save is yours to keep. So I think they're pushing for like, okay, let's make our patients healthier,
Right.
without having to worry about like, oh, like let's do a lot more procedures
So like
so
make
Test.
more money.
Yeah.
to make more money. I think they're trying to take the business aspect out of it by doing that, but I don't think that's going to fix this problem where pediatrics is compensated less than like the
Yeah.
adult counterparts. And I think it kind of put, like if you think about it, like pediatrics is definitely one of the fields where you need great doctors. Like come on, like
Clinicians.
like you need great physicians. You need them to have great interpersonal skills. You need them to be able to have like they need patience, because children can be really difficult to work with sometimes. But it's like you need to like learn, and you need to have that patience, and you need to like learn to talk to their parents, and you need like you can't let it like get over your head. And then imagine like it's a fact that some of your patients are gonna end up dying.
Right.
And like imagine a pediatric I like honestly like thinking about children dying is one of the worst like things that I consider when like pediatric oncology is gonna be really difficult, because watching like a 7-8-year-old pass away, like think about the emotional like drain that it can have on you.
Right. And the family too.
Yeah, and I think it's sad to say like they've structured it so like people don't. I mean, obviously, like I don't think everyone considers money, but like there's some cases where compensation is important, and they're just not, I don't think they're paid enough for what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's getting into like the intricacies of like business and
yeah.
medicine. It's hard.
No, I mean, sometimes like I don't know if you heard, step 1 became pass fail.
Recently.
Recently.
This was like 3 or 4
days ago, right?
Step 1.
It's
Step 1 is like basically the hardest exam.
And
it's like the MCAT, but like on steroids.
It's like
When you take it.
You take it like second or third year of
Second
med
year,
school,
third
typically.
year. Or end of second year.
End of second year, yeah. Some med schools are switching it to its third, but basically that exam is what's going to determine what kind of specialty you practice.
What residency you're going
Oh,
into.
it used to be the score you got.
Yeah.
And
it was so stressful, because imagine if you want to do something like neurosurgery, right?
you got it.
But if you can't get the score, you can't get it.
And you might be like really passionate, but like that was one of the main like things they looked at. And unless like you had some like something to save you if you had a bad score, like you couldn't practice it. And people thought of like pediatrics had lower scores historically, and it could be because of compensation. But like pediatrics was kind of like something like that needed low scores. Like you didn't like need that many like extracurriculars. Like it was kind of on the lower end.
It was
but
as
now
demanded.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason they're kind of pushing towards pass fail is like they're hoping that people pursue what interests them instead of like I got a really high score, so now I can do like this, right?
Nice,
Yeah.
Because I've definitely had my parents ask like more than once, they're like, you sure you're not going, like, because even my doctors would joke, they're like, if you want to do like oncology, do like radiation oncology or surgical oncology, because they're compensated a lot more. Procedures, right?
Procedural medicine's significantly
like
a lot of
anesthesiology. Anesthesiologist makes
easy money.
Yeah, like, and I mean, they obviously have
they work a lot.
job.
Everything's like in their brain.
Yeah, everything's
like,
in their brain.
No, they're working a lot. I mean, they do so much. They definitely do so
it's
much.
like but it's not as much as like they put like central lines in. They do all these things, right? But like everyone like, like anesthesiology doesn't need that like big of step 1 score. I think it's just because it's like the lifestyle might be difficult.
No, I heard the lifestyle's chill.
Okay, I've heard varying things about that.
So I recently went to like Philippines, and during that time I did a medical mission there, and they did like what was it? They did like cleft lip and cleft palate repairs. So I worked with the anesthesiologist. They were like super chill. They told me like as long as like nothing looks weird within like the vital signs,
then
everything is like chilling for the most part. I literally saw her playing the crossword puzzles.
Oh my god!
And I was just like looking over the procedures. Like, yeah.
Well, I guess like you still need an expert to.
I mean, they need to know what they got.
They need to obviously like
know.
they're professionals, like they've gone through residency and everything, but it's kind of insane. Like they make a lot of money. Like
they make a decent amount.
They make a decent
It's
amount.
because they're still part of the procedural part of medicine.
Yeah.
Because they're like the internal medicine doctors of the operation room.
Yeah. So if you think like if you're in a surgical or like an OR, right, then the surgeon is operating on your anatomy, and the anesthesiologist is maintaining your physiology. Like if you don't think about it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they're compensated very well. But pediatricians, like I definitely think, like I think even the pediatric anesthesiologists don't get compensated as well.
Really?
Yeah, just because you add the word pediatrics, like
Shucks.
Boom. All right, pay cut.
yeah. I think it's just because if you think about it, the anesthesiologists are gonna have to work harder to maintain the physiology of an older adult compared to like a younger child who doesn't have as many issues. I think that's the mentality.
Maybe.
I think
Because
that's
like here's like my perspective too. Because like when you're in peds, you're dealing patients that from like 1 or like they were just born
Yeah.
up until like what 17 or 18, right?
Yeah.
Or like 21. I don't know what the
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, those 3,
Yeah.
whatever. But then like their physiology changes so much during that time, and they're like how they're maturing and the development changes a lot.
But
so I would think that they need to know more information.
they need to know more.
But are they compensated?
But they do, because they have to do less, right? Because their body systems are not as like
complex.
not complex, but like they're not as messed up from like the environmental and like the
like
aging
a 65-year-old
process. Yeah, like
that are like
yeah.
have like multiple complications.
yeah.
And, like,
So I think that might play a part in it, but
it's just the intricacies of medicine. I don't
yeah.
know.
Always, I don't know if you're taking health policy, but it's always really interesting, and they always say like value-based care, so like you get better results, you get better compensated.
Is that what they're trying to shift to now?
I think so.
I'm glad.
Because I think it's right now it's fee for service, right? Procedures equal money, right? And I think if they switch to this, hopefully it makes it better. But I definitely think like the procedural doctors are still gonna make a lot more.
It's really hard just because you're going through like multiple levels of like bureaucracy, and like you don't know who's paying you. It's hard within the hospital. Yeah. You don't know who that business person is. Because
a lot of the determinants are like some MBA is determining all this most likely, right? Like that's what I always
that's my side of things.
Sam, you got
my side of things.
Understand. But I always imagine like there's some MBA like kind of like bunch of people getting together.
There's a spreadsheet somewhere like this.
Yeah, they're like, okay, like we're gonna pay him a lot more. He does a lot of stuff.
He's bringing in more money. From a business perspective, it makes sense. You compensate people that bring in more revenue.
Yeah, but it's just kind of sad to see in terms of like.
Yeah, it's hard because they don't
value on the ground.
Yeah, because I definitely think like, for me, like I always imagine pediatrics as being like really difficult. Like
it is. No.
Yeah, because you definitely you definitely don't do as many procedures, but like you need just as much knowledge. You're dealing with like
you're not taking care of one patient. You're taking care of like a whole family.
Literally, because like they're all gonna ask you a million questions. Like they're not gonna let you go until like
everyone is satisfied.
Everyone is satisfied.
Resolved, and those are parents are like difficult.
Dude, I've shadowed in I remember shadowing pediatric oncology, and there was this one mother, dude, and not like in a bad way. She was great. But she would like literally come in with a list of questions, and she would have like timestamps like, oh yeah, at this time he was feeling like this. At this time he was feeling like this. This happened. This dude, she was so like dedicated. I don't know if that's the right word.
Keeping track of
vigilance, observational.
And she wanted to run through everything with the doctor. Like she wasn't like, yeah, like is he fine now? Like she was like, okay, let's go through everything, and can I do something the next time this happened? And I remember being in the room for like over an hour and a half, like just talking. And she was definitely she had made herself really knowledgeable about like what was happening.
That's great.
And I definitely imagine there's a lot of parents like that.
Yeah. I guess they just don't value that as much. They don't value like the interactions, the interpersonal interactions over the procedural.
Yeah, but I definitely I think they're shifting. Like med schools are looking for students who are great at like these. Like interpersonal skills.
They can mediate conflict. They can understand people.
Yeah, but I definitely think like it's not something that's like kind of gonna go into the system. I think it's the med school process that ends up desensitizing a lot of people. I've heard that. Have you not heard that? Like,
There are a lot of things that can desensitize a medical student.
Yeah, like
All throughout pre-med, med school, residency, fellowship.
It's
There's a
so
lot.
depressing, dude.
Starts right here at Hopkins.
It does, dude.
It literally does.
Grinds you out.
Dude, you honestly start in intro chem and like by the time you're in organic chemistry and physics, you're just like, why am I doing this to myself? Like,
is this even worth it?
No, it's like it's just sometimes it's like it's fun to complain about it, but then you're like at the end of the day when you're like there, you're like the person taking care of the person. I definitely feel it's gonna be like worth it. Like
it's so meaningful.
Yeah.
Even like as a I volunteer. I volunteer within not in the ped onc, but I volunteer in oncology unit.
Yeah.
It's so meaningful when you make relationships with people and they want to see you. They want to interact with you. They want to talk to you. They want to catch up.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And I even feel like some of the patients, because a lot of these patients are more long term.
Yeah.
You're gonna see them like by long term. I mean you're gonna see them like they're more continuous. You're gonna see them like every day for a while.
The appointments are usually like weekly.
Yeah, weekly.
Yeah.
And
or you can actually build a relationship.
You end up like even as a volunteer, you end up like building relationships with them because like you sit like they're sitting there with chemo, like they're just getting chemo, right? And they're gonna be sitting there and yeah, they have like family around them. They can watch TV, but like it's just like sometimes it's just nice to talk to someone. Like
they prefer that.
Yeah, and especially like if you go into an oncology ward, I definitely like love to like when I was there, I loved to see medical students, and volunteers because like I always felt a little uncomfortable asking my like physicians like, hey, like what's up, what you up to, right? But I think it becomes a little easier like talking to like volunteers, medical students, like and like you end up learning a lot about them. But physicians like they're like, we need to get this done, like this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of harder. Like it was harder for me to build a relationship with them as much as like the people, like the nurses are great. Like,
without a doubt.
They're so great. Especially for oncology, I found like the nurses always want to talk to you. Like they always take me with them to like, oh yeah, like see this is how you do this. This is how you like clean up everything. So they're really great about that.
They're like literally like hospitality is like number one thing. They give so much like hospitality to the patients.
I still remember they would have patient surveys and they're like, oh, if you have time, like you can fill one out. And like I always like, dude, like I don't know what to say. You guys are all so good. Like you kind of don't have the words to like
express that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
It's different. It makes everything like you don't remember all the struggles you went through after you have those like little moments you have with those patients and
dude
when there's like a sliver of hope when there is like it's becoming nice or even like when it's tough but you guys are there to comfort each other.
Yeah, because like especially like some of the cancers they're so like aggressive.
Sometimes it's terminal.
Yeah. And even like you meet those people and they're just like they're so calm and you can learn so much from them just like talking to them like what they went through and like a lot of people are willing to like talk about it and they're like, yeah, like this happened, like this is how my life was impacted, but I'm happy, like they make it worth it, like at the end of the day. I still remember like for my freshman winter I was actually shadowing emergency medicine and pediatric oncology because the emergency medicine was at night. And so I would go to pediatric oncology in the morning, and then
you did a lot of shadowing.
Dude, medicine was something like that was really like because originally I was in neurosurgery and I fainted, right? And I was like, holy crap! Like if I want to do this, I need to like
make sure I really want to.
Like not make sure. I need to make sure I can do it. You know,
Oh.
like if I couldn't even even see a doctor like
like
skull. not even cut it up. He was like barely touching. Like he didn't even touch it, and I fainted.
Oh shoot!
And I remember trying to play it cool. I was like, I woke up at 3 this morning to come here because they start surgery pretty early, right? And I didn't have breakfast, and I didn't have dinner yesterday night, so it was just low blood sugar. I was trying to play it so.
It's all
cool.
good, Doc. Let's go.
I was trying to play it so cool, dude. So I ended up shadowing a lot, right? And so I would do emergency medicine at night, and then. I would have like a 1 or 2 hour break and then I would do pediatric oncology. And then I had like a 3 hour break and then I would go back and I think I did that for like a week or 2 and it was so brutal, dude. And I still remember some of the best times I had was there was this one kid. He always came, and he loved playing video games, and he would get so into it, and just the like he was literally on chemo, and just like how happy he was, like just seeing them happy, like made me happy, even though I was miserable not getting sleep. You know what I mean?
It's different. People can be infectious in like the happy way. It's really cool. It's very, very cool.
Cause dude, I feel like physicians, so many of them don't get sleep, and I definitely want to like do something where even if I don't get sleep, I want to be happy the next day. Like I don't want to be grouchy, and like dude, he would come and like he'd be so into the video games, and then everyone else would like come out like, and you'd all be playing, and it was a great time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Hey, thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, this went a lot longer.
No, this was great. This is awesome.
No.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your perspective.
No, thank you so much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. It's nice to like talk about it.
No, it's amazing to hear.
Definitely.
Wait till like camera was recording or something, or like the audio.
No, we trust.
Yeah.
Okay. Should be okay.
Yeah.
But
guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
like, subscribe, whatnot. Join us for next time, and maybe we'll have Daval again. we'll do a little continuation. We'll do a little follow up. You know.
Word.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Post MCAT. You gotta focus on MCAT. Yeah, focus on MCAT first.
Definitely.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.